Pack your bags, Emma. Your time living off my brother's wealth is over. Jessica's voice rang through the house, dripping with satisfaction. I stood in my kitchen, gripping my coffee mug as my sister-in-law paraded around like she owned the place. Behind her, my husband Marcus leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, wearing that expensive new watch his 24-year-old assistant had probably picked out. My name is Emma Sullivan, and at 35, I was watching my 12-year marriage crumble while my sister-in-law took inventory of what she claimed her brother's mistress would want to keep. You can't just throw me out, I said calmly, taking another sip of my coffee. The familiar taste grounded me even as Jessica's shrill laughter pierced the air. Actually, we can. Marcus never registered your marriage properly, did you, brother dear? She turned to him with a triumphant smile. Which means technically, you were never really married. Everything belongs to him. Marcus finally spoke, his voice carrying that newfound coldness I'd grown familiar with over the past few months. Megan needs a fresh start, Emma. And this house, well, it's perfect for her. Young. Modern. Unlike some things around here. I felt the sting of his words but kept my expression neutral. After 15 years together, 12 of them married, Marcus had decided his assistant Megan was his future. The same Megan who'd been sending him late-night texts for months. The same Megan who somehow convinced him that our marriage registration had been mishandled. Jessica circled the kitchen island, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors that I'd chosen 3 years ago during our renovation. You know what's funny? She mused, running her finger along the marble countertop. All those years you spent playing the perfect wife, acting like you belonged in our family, and now look, you'll be homeless by the weekend. I placed my mug in the sink, taking care to rinse it thoroughly. Some habits die hard. Is that what you think? Oh please, Jessica scoffed. Don't try to act tough now. We all know you came from nothing. No family money, no connections, just a small-town girl who got lucky with my brother. Well, your luck's run out. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of the man I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The one who used to defend me against his sister's casual cruelty. But that man disappeared as quickly as he'd surfaced. Emma, he said, attempting to sound reasonable, you can stay with your friend Sarah until you figure things out. I'll even give you some money too. How generous, I interrupted, my voice steady. But that won't be necessary. Jessica laughed again, the sound reminiscent of breaking glass. Are you delusional? This house belongs to the Sullivan family. Our grandmother left it to Marcus. You have no claim to it. I walked to the study, aware of their confused stares following me. The antique desk by the window had been my favorite spot in the house. Not that Jessica or Marcus ever noticed. They were too busy counting their inherited wealth to appreciate the actual treasures their grandmother had left behind. You know, I said, opening the desk's hidden compartment, your grandmother and I used to have tea here every Wednesday. She loved telling stories about the family history, about building this estate from nothing. I pulled out a sealed envelope, aged but intact. She also loved to talk about trust and loyalty. Marcus stepped forward, his brow furrowed. What are you talking about? What's that? This, I held up the envelope. This is the real family trust document. The one your grandmother amended 3 months before she died. The one she gave me for safekeeping because, in her words, only someone who truly loves this house will protect its legacy. Jessica's face paled. You're lying. All the trust documents are with our family lawyer. Are they? I smiled, remembering the last conversation I'd had with Marcus's grandmother. She'd seen right through her grandchildren's materialistic facade. Maybe you should call Mr. Patterson. He helped your grandmother make these changes after all. Marcus reached for the envelope, but I pulled it back. Don't worry, I said, gathering my keys. Mr. Patterson has copies. In fact, he's expecting my call. I headed for the door, pausing to look back at their stunned faces. Oh, and Jessica, you might want to hold off on measuring for new curtains. Something tells me Megan won't be needing them. As I walked to my car, I could hear Jessica's shrill voice demanding answers from Marcus. But I wasn't worried. Their grandmother had taught me more than just the value of family history. She taught me the importance of being prepared. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mr. Patterson's number. It was time to show them exactly what their grandmother's legacy really meant. Mr. Patterson's office hadn't changed in the 15 years I'd known him. The same leather chairs, the same towering bookshelves, even the same slight scent of pipe tobacco that reminded me so much of Marcus's grandmother. The only difference today was the tension in the air as Marcus and Jessica sat across from me, their faces a mix of anger and barely concealed panic. This must be some kind of mistake, Jessica insisted, her manicured nails drumming against the armrest. Grandmother would never. Actually, Mr. Patterson interrupted, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Sullivan was quite clear about her wishes. He opened the trust document I kept safe all these years, along with his own copy. 3 months before her passing, she made significant amendments to the family trust. Marcus leaned forward, his jaw tight. What kind of amendments? The elderly lawyer cleared his throat. The main property, including the house and surrounding grounds, was placed in a separate trust. The sole trustee. He paused, looking directly at me, his Emma. That's impossible. Jessica shot up from her chair. She's not even legally married to Marcus. She's nobody. Mr. Patterson raised an eyebrow. Regarding the marriage, I have some clarification there as well. He pulled out another document. Your grandmother personally ensured their marriage was properly registered. She kept a copy here in my office. I watched the color drain from Marcus's face. All his plans, all his assumptions about our invalid marriage crumbled in an instant. But why? Marcus finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would grandmother do this? Perhaps, Mr. Patterson said, you should read her letter. He handed Marcus an envelope I'd never seen before. Marcus's hands shook as he read aloud. My dearest grandchildren, if you're reading this, then Emma has finally opened the envelope I entrusted to her. I've watched for years as you took our family's legacy for granted, measuring its worth only in dollars and cents. But Emma, she understood. She spent time with me, listened to our family's stories, appreciated the history in every room of that house. While you saw property values, she saw memories. While you counted square footage, she preserved photographs and restored old furniture. The truth is, the Sullivan legacy isn't about money. It's about honor, dedication, and love. Emma has shown more of these qualities than either of you. Marcus, my dear boy, if you're reading this with your wife by your side, cherishing what you've built together, then perhaps I was wrong. But if you're here because you've forgotten the value of loyalty and family, then I made the right choice. The house and the responsibility of preserving our family's true legacy belongs to Emma. With love and hope for wisdom, Grandmother Sullivan. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica had sunk back into her chair, her earlier bravado completely deflated. Marcus stared at the letter, reading it over and over, as if hoping the words would somehow change. There's more, Mr. Patterson added, shuffling through his papers. Mrs. Sullivan also left specific instructions about the family's business holdings. Jessica's head snapped up. The company's shares. Yes. Upon any attempt to contest Emma's position as trustee, or any proven infidelity within the marriage, he glanced meaningfully at Marcus. 30% of the Sullivan Group shares would be transferred to the charitable foundation Emma helps run. I sat there, absorbing the magnitude of what Marcus's grandmother had done. She hadn't just protected me. She'd ensured that her family's legacy would be preserved one way or another. She knew, Marcus said suddenly, looking at me. Somehow she knew I would. That I might. She knew people, I corrected gently. She understood that sometimes we need consequences to remind us of what matters. Jessica stood up abruptly. This isn't over. We can contest this, Marcus. She can't just. Actually, Mr. Patterson interjected. Any legal contest would trigger the share transfer clause immediately. The foundation would become a major stakeholder in Sullivan Group. Is that what you want, Jessica? As Jessica sank back into her chair, defeated, I thought about all the Wednesday afternoons I'd spent with their grandmother, drinking tea and listening to her stories. She taught me about more than just family history. She taught me about strength, patience, and the importance of standing your ground. I gathered my belongings and stood up. Mr. Patterson, thank you for everything. Marcus, Jessica, I'll be at the house if you need to collect any personal items. Just call first. As I reached the door, Marcus called out, Emma, wait. Please. We can talk about this. I turned back one last time. You know where to find me. I'll be in the study, having tea, just like your grandmother taught me. A month passed and autumn painted the Sullivan estate in shades of gold and crimson. I sat in the study, sipping tea from Mrs. Sullivan's favorite china cup, when Sarah dropped by with dinner. "I still can't believe it," she said, settling into the armchair by the window. "All those years you spent with their grandmother, none of us knew she was planning this." I smiled, remembering the quiet afternoons with the elderly woman who'd become more of a mother to me than a grandmother-in-law. She always said the best surprises come wrapped in patience. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Through the window, I spotted Marcus's car in the driveway. He'd been trying to reach me for weeks, leaving messages about wanting to talk, about making things right. "Should I go?" Sarah asked, but I shook my head. "No, stay. Whatever he has to say, he can say it in front of my real family." Marcus looked different when I opened the door, humble somehow. The expensive watch was gone, replaced by the simple one I'd given him years ago. He carried a familiar wooden box under his arm. "Emma," he said softly, "can we talk?" I led him to the study, where Sarah's presence clearly surprised him. He hesitated before sitting down, placing a box carefully on the desk. "I found this in my office," he began. It's grandmother's recipe box. The one she used to keep all her special occasion dishes in. I thought you should have it." I recognized the box immediately. Mrs. Sullivan and I had spent countless hours going through those recipes, her elegant handwriting telling stories of family gatherings and holiday traditions. "Megan left," he continued, his voice thick with regret. "After the trust revelation, after everything came out, she said she didn't sign up for this kind of drama." He laughed bitterly. "Turns out she was more interested in the Sullivan name than in me." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, seeing him in pain didn't bring me joy. "Jessica's different too," he added. The threat of losing those shares, it made her realize how close we came to destroying everything grandmother built. "She's been going through old family photos, asking about the stories you and grandmother used to talk about." I poured another cup of tea, offering it to him out of habit. He took it, his hands shaking slightly. "I was so wrong, Emma, about everything. I got caught up in the excitement of something new, something that made me feel young again. I forgot what real love looks like." Sarah shifted in her chair, a silent reminder of her presence and support. "Your grandmother knew," I said quietly. "She knew that love isn't about excitement or youth. It's about building something together, preserving what matters, creating a legacy worth protecting." Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. Is there any way we can try again? I know I don't deserve it, but—" "No," I interrupted gently. "We can't go back, Marcus. Your grandmother didn't create this trust to save our marriage. She did it to save her family's legacy. And that's what I intend to do." I opened the recipe box, pulling out a folded paper tucked between the pages. "Look what I found last week. Her Christmas pudding recipe. The one she made every year. The one you and Jessica loved so much as children." His eyes lit up with recognition. "I remember. She never wrote it down, said it had to be passed on in person." "She taught it to me," I said softly. "The Christmas before she died. Said someday I'd need to teach it to the next generation of Sullivans." Marcus wiped his eyes. "You were always more of a Sullivan than I was." "No," I corrected him. "I just understood what it meant to be one. Your grandmother saw that. That's why she trusted me with this house, with these memories." Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand, a gesture that spoke volumes about true friendship and support. "The holidays are coming up," I said, standing to walk Marcus to the door. "I'll be making her Christmas pudding. You and Jessica are welcome to join us, not as husband and wife, but as family. That's what your grandmother would have wanted." Marcus paused at the doorway. "Thank you, Emma, for preserving not just the house, but the heart of what grandmother built." After he left, Sarah and I returned to the study. The evening light filtered through the windows, casting warm shadows on the antique desk where Mrs. Sullivan and I had spent so many afternoons. "You know," Sarah said, "she'd be proud of you, not just for standing your ground, but for understanding what she was really protecting." I picked up the recipe box, running my fingers over its worn edges. Inside were more than just recipes. They were stories, traditions, pieces of a legacy that would live on through the generations. "She used to say that a house is just walls and windows," I replied, "but a home is built with love, understanding, and forgiveness. That's the real Sullivan legacy." As the sun set over the estate, I felt at peace. This house, these memories, this legacy, they were exactly where they belonged. And so was I.